It's frustrating when your hard work doesn't lead to the outcome that you were expecting. You did the right things, you showed up, you delivered, and still that promotion went to someone else, or the role just disappeared. I don't know why that happens, but it does. That moment, it can really knock the wind out of you. It's easy to start questioning your value, your visibility, and honestly, your future at the company. But a missed promotion isn't a dead end, it's a decision point. Something just shifted, either in the organization or in you. So instead of brushing it off and spiraling into self doubt, let's pause and figure out what this moment is telling you. Are you still on the right track? Do you want to stay and advocate for your next step? Or is it time to explore something new? In this episode, I will walk you through how to reset your focus using the Control Your Career process so that you can move forward with clarity, not just frustration. Welcome to Control Your Career. I'm Julia Toothacre, your strategic career consultant, and I am so glad that you're here. This season, we are talking through real career challenges that can throw even the most successful professionals off course. And today's challenge, you didn't get the promotion. Whether you were promised something that didn't materialize or you were quietly passed over without explanation, it's a tough moment. And it raises a lot of questions. What went wrong? Should I be doing something differently? Am I even in the right place anymore? This episode is here to help you slow down, reflect, and reset. Let's get into it. So first, let's talk about why it hurts so much to not get the promotion. Well, promotions feel like validation. It's not just the title or the money. It's really about you being seen. It's showing you that people understand the value that you bring to the table. They see the hard work that you've put in, the relationships you've built. You've been visible. You've been strategic. You're doing all the things in order to get the promotion. You think you have the support, and then it doesn't happen. And when it doesn't happen, we usually internalize it. So it becomes this, well, did I mess up? Am I not good enough? What could I have done different? But a lot of times it has nothing to do with us, right? But it can make you question, right? It makes you question your loyalty to the organization or to the person who promised the promotion. It makes you question your impact, or in some cases, even your career choices, especially if this was going to be a really big promotion that you knew was going to kind of change the course of your career. That can be really, really frustrating. But when it doesn't happen, it's also an opportunity to take a step back and ask yourself, is this the right direction for me? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you shouldn't stay at the organization and all of that. This is such a personal decision that you have to make. There are some situations where I will absolutely say you need to leave, but there are a lot of situations where I will say, you know what, you've built a career there, you have some longevity, and something happened that was outside of your control, and you need to just hold out for it. But there are some environments that will string you along for a long time, and then they will not honor, how much you've done. And in those cases, that's when we definitely want to take a step back and ask if this is the right situation for me. So that is going to look different for everyone and takes us in to the first step of the Control Your Career framework, which is realistic reality. And so as much as possible, we have to look at this scenario and go, what actually happened? What I want you to ask yourself first is, was this promotion clearly promised or discussed, or was it assumed? This is such a distinction that needs to be made, because depending on the answer to this will depend on the severity of how you should feel about it. if there was a clear promise, like you talked about this in weekly meetings, you talked about it in your annual, you talked about it, this was known, you were going to get this position or they were creating a position for you. And then it's 3 months and it doesn't happen. It's 6 months and it doesn't happen. It's a year and it doesn't happen. Now we're having a different conversation about, is there a timeline on this and when is it going to happen? Because if they're pushing you off and pushing you off, again, that's when we might want to take a step back and go, do I want to stay and wait for this? But there are some situations where it might be a passing thought, or we know that a position is going to open up. Maybe somebody's retiring and you believe that you are going to get it based on whatever you think. And because of that, you think, oh, I'm going to get this. It's assumed that you're going to get it based on all these factors, and then you don't. And it might be because they don't have that position anymore. They change the parameters, like so many different things can happen. And then we get frustrated. Well, in that situation, like you assumed, but never had a conversation. So we want to be really clear about what you knew, what you truly knew was going to happen, and what were the conversations versus did you assume? So I want to make sure that that is something that you define for yourself first. If you didn't get the promotion, what feedback was offered to you, especially, internal promotions? That's the best time to be able to get feedback because usually you're working with somebody that a manager, a leader. And so it's easier for us to get feedback internally. If you haven't received feedback, you need to try to get it to understand what's missing so that you can make those changes and adjustments. And then I want you to take a look outside of yourself and go, did something happen within the organization that changed what was going on? So sometimes this happens without you knowing. Things can just change very quickly. So budget, leadership, company direction, those are all things that can happen so quickly that you don't even realize that it's happened. And so that's something that you also need to be aware of because you might not be in the room to have those conversations. And then are there conversations that need to happen that haven't happened yet? This is really important. If there was an assumption made and you didn't get a position, then you might want to do a follow-up with your manager, whoever you need to say, hey, what's going on with this? Or what does my future look like in the organization, to figure out what they see and the value that you bring to the table. So again, stage 1 is all about understanding what actually happened. And in this particular topic, this is so important because it's really going to change how you approach the organization moving forward. Because if you were in the running for a leadership position and somebody else got it that you don't believe deserved it, then we're going to have some tough future conversations and future situations that you're going to have to navigate. So really figure out as much as possible what actually happened, what conversations happened, and whether or not it was an assumption or something that was promised. So now let's go into identity analysis. And this is really more about what's happening internally with you, along with some of the things that you want and you value within your career. And so when we're talking about a rejection of sorts, we want to understand, how does this decision, impact or clash with our values or our sense of identity? I shared a little bit of this earlier. It can really make us question who we are. And is that valid? Is it valid for us to ask those questions? Or is this simply a business decision that had nothing to do with us, right? So I want you to look a little bit deeper within yourself when it comes to this topic and ask yourself, are you someone who values growth, recognition, or impact? If you value those things, then it's especially going to impact you when you don't get the promotion or when your work is not seen enough to be the person, being asked to do these different things and taking on more tasks. So it's going to hit you a little bit harder than somebody who maybe just doesn't value recognition as much. Also ask yourself, does this environment allow you to show up as your full self? I think this is really important when somebody else gets the promotion over us. Are we able to be who we are, or is who we are not valued in this particular environment? One of the exercises that I do with clients who are not only applying to positions externally, but also doing internal promotion, if they don't get it, if somebody else gets it, we want to look at, why did that person get it? What did that person have that you didn't? Was it a skill set, personality trait, a leadership trait, a relationship? Like, there are so many factors that go into it that you have to understand. Even if you were the best person for the job, would you have gotten it or not? I was in a situation where I thought that I was going to get a leadership position, and I didn't. And it was twofold, partially because I did not have the right relationships across the organization, and I did not have the personality type that the new leader wanted. And the person that came in had no experience in our field, but was brought in because they had the connections across the organization and they had the personality type that that leader believed was best for that role. There is nothing I could have done to change the mind of that leader, like at all. Now, what I ended up doing was staying for too long, but I ended up going into an environment that valued my style, that valued my personality and my approach to leadership, and it was the best fit for me. So I had leadership changes that happened that were outside of my control. There's nothing I could have done. If you're in a situation like that, you have to evaluate. You could be the best person for the job, but if something outside of you happens, then you have to reconcile that and go, yep, I get it, and then make a choice. I chose to stay for a while and then I transitioned. Probably shouldn't have stayed, but I did. So you have to make that decision for yourself. I think sometimes in this particular topic, because we're dealing with a level of rejection, it can also hit our belief system. And so we want to, again, look deeper inside of ourselves and go, are my beliefs being challenged by this particular decision? So this idea that good work pays off or loyalty gets rewarded. I talked about this in another episode, right? There are certain constructs that we live with as women, first gen, all of that, that we think, oh, if I work hard enough, if I'm the best at my job, then I'm going to get the promotion. And that's not always the case. And so is the culture, really butting up against those beliefs? And is that going to be the right culture for you? And then something that I think is so key that, again, we've talked about in other episodes that's helpful for you to understand as a professional is your style and your communication. So how does your leadership style or your communication style align or misalign with either the culture or the decision makers? And that's something that you have to come to terms with as a professional. I've shared in other episodes, I'm a very direct communicator, and that is valued with some people and in some environments and is not valued in other environments. And I figured that out really quickly and was able to understand how to interview well to make sure that people understood who I was and what I stood for. But I also got myself into certain cultures that I didn't realize were going to be a mismatch at the time, and long-term ended up not being a good fit. And so being able to evaluate your style and how you come across to others is going to be really helpful when we're talking about promotions, because you're going to be able to take a step back and go, yeah, I can see why, because I'm this way and that person is this way. or this is what this position needs, and that's not something that I naturally bring to the table, so I can see why they didn't choose me for that. And here's the thing, and again, we've talked about this so much, but I think is so important with this topic in particular. Promotions are not always going to go to the most qualified. They're going to go to the most aligned. So I just shared a story that happened to me. The person that got that position was not educated in the work that we were doing in our department, but they brought other skills to the table that the leader above them wanted. And you know what? Honestly, it was a good fit. That person was a good leader. We all liked them. It really was a good situation, but it still, for me internally, was frustrating because I knew that I could do the job had I been given the chance, but that's not what they were looking for. And so I had to reconcile that just because I might have been qualified in other ways, I was not the most aligned. And so you have to ask that for yourself as well. And here's a really good prompt for you around personality that I think is helpful for this topic. Where do you feel most misunderstood or undervalued in your position or in your organization right now? Okay, let's go on to stage 3, which is purpose-driven plan. This is where we're looking at the goals. Okay, there are going to be 2 distinct goals for this particular topic. The first goal is going to be, am I staying in this organization and continuing to pursue promotions through some other avenue? Or am I going to leave and pursue either a lateral or promotional move in another organization? Those are really the 2 goals that we are leading with when it comes to this topic. Now, are there other things? Sure. But honestly, those are the 2 main ones that we need to look at. And so that's what you're going to want to be evaluating for yourself. And if you're going to stay in the organization, you really want to think about, do I care about this promotion? Is this something that I really want? Are there gaps that I need to fill? So we have kind of that main goal, but then we're going to have sub goals around this. So if you are going to stay, what needs to happen? You need to have some conversations. We need to, look at the situation objectively. Are there some skills? Can you talk to your manager about helping to fill some of those skills gaps? Or is it never going to happen, right? Because maybe your personality is not a good fit for what they're looking for. And in that case, we're moving into, okay, let's work on leaving the organization, which in that case, we're preparing, we're looking, all that. So job search process, if we're going that way. So those are the 2 key goals that you're going to want to look at when it comes to this topic in particular. At the end of the day, you really just want to ask yourself, where am I headed? Where am I headed in my career? Because for some of you, not getting the promotion might jar something in you that you want to do something else, or you want to pursue a different avenue, and that is also okay. Stage 4 is all about taking action. Now, I know for some of you, this is going to be hard, and that's because this type of rejection can hit us really deeply and kind of send us into a little spiral sometimes. And so because of that, we want to make sure that we are still taking action of some kind. Listening to this episode, walking through some of these questions that I'm asking you, that's a great first step. That's a way of taking action. But also, we identified 2 goals in stage 3. Either you're staying and you're going to pursue promotion again, or you're just going to stay in the position, or you're going to leave. So I'm going to address if you leave. If you leave, you're going into a standard job search process. I'm not going to go into all the actions associated with that. It's a job search process. We all know. If you are going to stay, then we need to have some strategic conversations. So first of all, you need to figure out what you want, why you want to stay, where you want your career to go in the organization. And you need to have some conversations with your manager about what that looks like. Those are going to be the actions that you're going to take once you have clarified that goal. So you need to figure out what you want. You need to have conversations with your manager. and then start executing on the skills gap that you may or may not have related to getting a promotion in that organization. Or you need to come to terms with it might not happen for a while. And are you okay with that? In some cases, we threw our hat in the ring for a promotion and we didn't really care. So that's something to also determine for yourself. I know sometimes taking action can be hard after rejection, but you don't have to rush through it. Take some time to grieve this loss. Take some time to really consider what is going on. Again, go through stage 1, realistic reality, go through stage 2, figure out what you need, what you're looking for, and then take action when you are ready to take action. Okay, high impact habits, stage 5. I've said this before on other episodes, but there's not always going to be clear habits associated with these topics. When it comes to this topic in particular, I think it's helpful to, especially if you're still trying to go for the promotion, whether that's internally or externally, you want to start tracking your wins and your goals. You want to start tracking your wins and outcomes if you have not done that already, because that's what's going to help build the case for why you should get the position. So something you need to consider is maybe your materials or your interview didn't read well to whoever was reading them or whoever you met with. And so if that's the case, what do we need to do in order to close that gap? We talked about potentially there needs to be a skills gap. There needs to be some additional skills that are learned and all of that. That's very possible. So your habit might be, each month I'm going to set a goal to learn a new skill or develop whatever needs to be developed in order for me to get to that next level. In some cases, it's regularly checking in with your manager. Maybe once a month, you have a conversation around your growth, and they can help you identify areas of growth to help you get to that next step. So your habits don't have to be complicated, and they don't have to be 100% related to the topic. It might be something that just helps enhance your career, but don't think that it has to be this daily, weekly habit that you work through. This one, for this topic, it's going to be a little bit more simple. At the end of the day, you want to track your growth. So you want to think about, how do I track my growth? And then how do I make a case for visibility when the time comes for the next promotion? And I have some episodes about visibility that you might want to check out as well, if that was something that came up for you as a blocker. Now, I know that not getting the promotion hurts, but remember, it doesn't define you. It doesn't define your worth, and it doesn't define your potential. It is one moment in the much bigger story of your career. So the question now is, what do you want this moment to lead to? If this episode resonated with you, subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. And please share this episode with somebody who you know is in the middle of a career setback and maybe didn't get that promotion as well. And as always, I have a free worksheet that outlines the Control Your Career process and allows you to take notes and also write down the prompts that I have from this episode to help you organize your thoughts. You've got this. I know it's hard, but you've got it. And remember, keep taking control of your career.